Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me, as usual, Alistair McKenzie. Alistair, I didn't understand. Is it Cagliari Lazio finished, or it's Lazio Torino, the Torino Lazio that just finished? Just to understand how things are going.
Yeah, which one's which? It's oh my god. I mean, it's great drama. Don't get me wrong, and it does make for a more special celebration over a win against Torino than you'd normally get. But it's not good for the heart, this Vittorio. It's not good for our health.
No, absolutely. But it's good for the Lazio fans. I think I will take that. And this brings me to the first consideration about that. If we are in extra time and I have to pick between Ibrahimovic, Messi, Ronaldo, and Caicedo, I have no doubt Felipe Caicedo is my man.
He's the only man. He's the only option. Zona Caicedo, 98th minute. I mean, it is ridiculous that this keeps happening. I saw earlier on that this is the 5th goal he scored for Lazio after 90 minutes. And given that he doesn't score that many goals for Lazio, that is a big percentage. I should have found out the actual percentage. I haven't, but it's going to be significant.
Yeah. You already wasted your stats. Okay.
I know, too early.
But yeah, the other thing, Alistair, it's incredible. We're going to talk about COVID, what happened with the test, etc. But till Friday morning, Inzaghi doesn't even know who's going to be able to play. Then he recovers a couple of players. Immobile is on the bench, Stakosha as well, etc. We go down 93 minutes. We equalize with a penalty. I think a lot of team would be happy about that and just, okay, let's take a point, etc. Instead, Lazio, with all what happened during the week, still goes there and try to win it. This is really, surprising and at the same time very, very positive for the team because they were looking for a win. And even so many problems, they still fight till the end.
Yeah, and you're right. I think that scoring a last-minute equaliser like that in that fashion is enough for a lot of teams to feel, especially away from home, to feel like you've done really well to get back in the game late on. But this team just has this attitude where they just always believe into the last minute, and it can sound a bit cheesy and so on, but we saw this last season time and time again, all these comeback wins or late wins, and it's kind of disappeared a little bit, I think, since lockdown. That kind of fighting spirit, we haven't seen as much of it. But then over the last week, we've really seen that. In the week we've had, has been a mess. We'll talk. I know you talked about the problems going to Bruges earlier in the week and only having 12 fit players available, and it's been a really, really tough week for Simone Inzaghi and for his squad. And for them to come away from Belgium with the team they had, with a Champions League draw, and then go to Torino and do that, I think that is the kind of the kind of week that can really change the whole season for this team, because it can really put that belief back into them, that momentum, that fighting spirit, and it was so good to see that, and that it's not disappeared. And we did it all with the green kit, amazingly.
It's the second win we have with that kit away, because even against Cagliari we won in the green kit. So let's go back and talk about this week, because it has been unbelievable. So for playing in the Champions League, in the UEFA competition, you have to do the test UEFA decide. And it looks like they are not 100% accurate. Let's put it this way. What was it? 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, Inter had problem with Hakimi, who was positive, but instead wasn't positive. So he had to miss the Champions League match. Last week for Lazio was even worse, because not only 12 players were positive at the Champions League, at the UEFA test. And so Inzaghi couldn't bring them to Bruges to play the Champions League. Obviously, to play for the Serie A, they had to do the test. They tried to do a more specific test, a more accurate test. Until Friday, we didn't have the results. So it was funny to read that Lazio didn't have pretty much any players available. And I think the most incredible thing is Friday, Denis Vavro was starting with Lazio, and Sunday he wasn't even on the bench. He wasn't even called. I don't know what's happening with Denis Vavro, because he's fit for playing for the national team, and then when it's Lazio time, he's always injured. But yeah, finally Inzaghi recovered Luis Felipe, Leiva, Stracoscia, Immobile, Lazzari, I think, and Luis Alberto are the not clear situation, because Lazio said they are not positive players, but they weren't either on the bench. So what's going on?
Yeah, and also the impact that has on your match preparation is huge, like you say. I mean, if you're preparing to have a certain team because you're expecting certain absences, your approach can completely change one day to the other. I mean, it was only 2 or 3 days ago that Luis Felipe and Lucas Leiva were locked up together in isolation, and it kind of has, I guess, kind of restored a bit of confidence in the squad overall. I mean, I know that was one of the questions we got. I'll start trying to drop them in. Jeppe Nielsen was asking us whether it's about the game, whether it was luck, skill, or fighting spirit that got us it. But he also asked if the last 2 games make us more confident about the depth of the squad. And I think that they kind of have to, because if nothing else, it's shown that at least this team is able now to rotate quite heavily and still get results. And even though there are elements of both performances I'm sure we're not happy with, they still have had 4 points from 2 games, which, considering everything they've been up against, isn't really a bad result.
No, absolutely. And I think, obviously, when you win this type of matches, there's a bit of luck, there's a bit of ability, quality of the players, and obviously there's a bit of issue from the other side. I thought Torino was a little bit too soft in the Caicedo goal, because if you go and watch, there is Caicedo all alone and there are 4 Torino defenders, and Caicedo touches the ball like 4 times and no one is able to kick that ball away. So but I agree with you. I mean, one of the things we said this summer is that Lazio need to have more players available, a better depth. It's not the number, because you only can sign 25 players, so it's not that changed. But obviously, having Berisha, who Inzaghi never trusted, or Akpak Pro, it's a big difference, because Inzaghi trusts Akpak Pro. He started in Champions League, he came in yesterday, and so on. So I think that's the biggest difference. We saw it with Vavro, right? Even if Vavro is fit, he doesn't get the call. With Hutt, he just arrived and already started I don't know how many matches. So I think that's the biggest difference from this Lazio compared to last year.
Yeah, and one of the other questions we got from Massey was whether, is this serious football or is it just some happy freestyle? And I quite like that question, because obviously it did feel a bit like that. And look, this isn't a good Torino team. Giampaolo's having a really tough time there. They've started the season really badly. But like we say, I think that we can't really make a judgment on Lazio's style of football based on that game so much, because of the fact that we didn't have any time to prepare for it, because of the fact that we were doing things like handing the first starts to Pereira Muriqi, putting Patrick at wing back for the first time this season. Akpak Pro ended up at left wing back. That man is just blowing my mind at the moment, by the way. We can get onto him later. But yeah, I think that I think Lazio's style of football is, in its own nature, quite high risk anyway, because they like to commit numbers forward for attacks and they get exposed at the back, and we do see a lot of high scoring games as a result of it. So it's not complete chaotic freestyle. It was yesterday a little bit, but also we should keep in mind that yesterday was a bit of an anomaly, because I saw that although there were 7 goals in the game, there were only 8 shots on target. So it was one of these strange freak matches where almost every chance that there was went into the back of the net. And all 3 of Lazio's goals were completely self-inflicted, that they conceded as well. So although the scoreline and the manner of the victory and everything was very loose and very chaotic and freestyle, like you said, I think that perhaps it disguises what the match was actually like as a whole.
And we have to say, I know a lot of Lazio fans are very upset for the mistake Hurt made that allowed Torino to score the third goal. But let's not forget that the first goal, it's a mistake of Acerbi, who completely loses his man on the corner kick. So, as you were saying, all three goals of Torino comes from Lazio mistake. The penalty was quite soft, I thought. I still have doubts, but
which one?
The Torino one.
Okay.
I thought there was another one.
I think they both are.
I thought the Torino had the one with Luis Felipe was far more penalty than the one of Andres Pereira. Definitely, no doubt about it. But again, Pereira could be more careful in the penalty box. He has to remember that he's not anymore with Manchester United. He's with Lazio. So things are a little bit different.
He's at a real club now.
Yeah, absolutely. But what Lazio have to work is stop making mistakes under defense, because against Torino you were able to recover, but 3 mistakes in a match can cost you 3 points. So and from Acerbi, it's quite surprising to see him making those mistakes.
Yeah, and they were 3 quite different mistakes as well. But again, massively avoidable. And like you say, Acerbi's usually someone we can really rely on not to do something like that. And it's a simple case of not following your man at the corner, not marking him tight enough. The fact that Bremer is able to stoop down and head in from, the ball's only about a metre up from the ground at that point is shocking defending from a set piece. And then the penalty, I agree. I think the one on Verdi was far more of a penalty than the one on Belotti, but I also don't really think that the penalty we got should have been given as a penalty. It was a strange game of refereeing decisions, but you're right, it's avoidable, especially because as Pereira chased Belotti into the box, there were already 2 Lazio players in front of him to be able to shut down that attack. So he didn't need to take any risks there. And the Hope thing was just a freak one. But again, it goes back to what we've already said about Hook quite recently, which is that he can have an otherwise decent game. And I think he did otherwise have a fine game. He didn't do anything incredible. He didn't do anything bad. He did set up Caicedo's goal, by the way, we should mention. But, he is capable of one catastrophic error that can just destroy things for you. And we've seen that a couple of times now. But that was really very bad because his lack of pace was exposed, but also to get knocked over by Sasa Lukic, who's about a quarter of the size of him, was quite poor.
I had a little bit of discussion on Twitter with some Lazio fan. I'm not sure that was a foul, to be honest.
I don't think it was.
Yes, he pushes Hurt, but you have to be strong enough to win that tackle. So, anyway, we managed to win it. So that's important. And again, I repeat it. I want to stress this point. We won it, and 2 days before, we didn't know if we had 12 players available to play. I still remember that Akpa Pro should have played right back and Vavro starting, So this is simply incredible. And Alistair, we have to talk about Akpa Pro because it was funny. After the match, he said, they asked him, well, have you ever played in that position? And he said, well, I played left back, right back, central mid, striker, defender, central defender. I mean, I wanted to ask him, did you play goalie as well sometime? Because, you played everywhere.
Yeah,
and
between him and Marco Parolo, we're covered,
and again, he played very well. He wasn't lucky because Torino saved one of his shots on the line. Now, I don't remember who was it. That would be, would have put Lazio ahead. And it was the second half when Lazio was pushing more than Torino. But again, he came in and had another very, very good performance. This player needs to play even more, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if he hasn't earned a starting place against Zenit from that. I think he was brilliant off the bench. I think it made a big difference having Lucas and Pereira, and Lucas and Agpagpo come on at half time, because I rewatched the game today actually, and I made a note of that, because I think it made a huge difference having two kind of energetic midfielders who are capable of winning the ball and intercepting passes in the way that they did. But his interceptions were just amazing. I mean, he just picks up everything that's around him. There's a kind of 2 meter radius circle around him, and if the ball falls in it, he gets it. I was just so impressed with him. And there, actually, the moment you mentioned when his shot got cleared off the line, I made a note of that, because I thought that whole move just summed up everything that was good about him, because he kind of hoovered up a loose ball to start that move. Then he got the shot away that was cleared off the line, so he's unlucky. But then he sprints back into midfield and he stops the counter-attack with a slide tackle. I was like, this guy is just doing everything. It's like having two players on the pitch, because he's busy at both ends of the pitch. He's intercepting, he's winning you the ball back, but then he's also getting forward, giving you an option in forward areas. I know we've already talked about how much of a surprise he's been, but he just keeps surprising me.
Yeah, and there are rumors that Lazio is going to renew his contract, so he could be a Laziale for a long time.
I should say, just before we move on, that we did get a question on him from Alexander Mikkelsen, which was what his potential is. And I guess we should reiterate again that he's 28 years old. So it has taken a few people by surprise that he's not a young player, but then again, that doesn't necessarily mean that his potential is low, does it? Because he's showing the potential to become an important player for Lazio, regardless of his age.
Yeah, and let's not forget that he's 28, but he's been out of football for quite a bit because of injury. So I think he still have 4 or 5 years of good level ahead of him. And so, we don't have to make the mistake of saying this is a superstar, etc. He still have to prove everything. He still have to show that he can play consistently at this level. But definitely, he was a surprise. If we go back and listen to our podcast of what we were saying in July, August, we were thinking that he would never stay. I remember doing talking about the first friendly match and said, hey, this Aqua Pro, it's quite, it's not that bad. Eh? So, he still have to keep pushing. We said it last year. One of the problems of this team was the central mid, because when Milinkovic Savic and Luis Alberto are not playing, we didn't have that much talent. Now, the Aqua Pro can fill one gap. I hope Andreas Pereira can do the other one, because I think we have some question about him. He scored, but I didn't think he played very well overall. So the Brazilian has talent. I think the biggest problem he has is he didn't train that much with the rest of the team, and he was a little bit outside the Lazio plan. He didn't know very well what to do.
Yeah, and I think he will need time with that. He's really not had very long to get used to it, as we know. I think it was great, though, that he did get a goal on his first start. I mean, there was a lot of attention around the fact that Muriqi and Pereira were both getting their first starts in this match. And to mark it with a goal is a good start, even if he then came off at half-time and gave away a penalty. But yeah, I mean, it's good to have those options, I guess, if you're expecting him to be the replacement midfielder that we're depending on, and then instead Agpagpo has probably moved ahead of him in the kind of pecking order now. It's amazing, because I think it does make you less worried about Alberto's absence at the moment. Alberto says he's got COVID. The club don't agree, apparently. But either way, it looks like we're going to be without him for a while. And he's such an important player for Lazio, as we know, that would usually, and last season would have kind of made us terrified. Now, I would still think Lazio are a far, far better team with Alberto in the lineup. But I think between Pereira, who should improve, and Agpagpo, we've got options that mean we can kind of adapt. And I don't know if you thought this as well, but when I was watching the game, I thought that actually in the absence of Alberto, Milinkovic Savic took on a bit of a different role, because he usually is kind of asked to be almost an auxiliary striker and join the front two and win the nod-ons and be around the box. But in the game yesterday, I thought he was playing a lot more in the deeper positions. He was kind of directing play, knocking long passes, through balls, and I thought he did actually really well in that role. But I thought it kind of stood out to me as being quite interesting because without Alberto, I thought he had a bit more creative license.
Yeah, I thought in the first half, Andreas Pereira should have taken that role, but he didn't. And so that's why Milinkovic-Savic did. And probably this is the reason why Inzaghi subbed him at the end of the first half, because Akpa Pro has different skills and Milinkovic-Savic pretty much tried to play the playmaker position. Again, Milinkovic-Savic is such a talented player. I think he can play a little bit like Akpa Pro in 4 or 5 different positions and have success. I hope Andreas Pereira grow and start playing the playmaker position, because I think that's why Lazio signed him. But yeah, Milinkovic-Savic is growing, is becoming more and more the leader of this team. So even if he doesn't score or he is not, the assist man, you can see that he's becoming a leader of this match, of this team, and this is very important for us.
Now we have to talk about Muriqi, because this is probably the biggest response we've had to anything for Caicedo. But obviously he had his first start, as we already mentioned, in this game, and after a few substitute appearances. People generally not very impressed, Vittorio. I'll read out a few of the comments and then we can discuss what we think about it. But where's the first one? Joy Chami said, "Is Muriqi worth half of what we paid for? He's slow, he can't hold the ball, he loses it easily, didn't even get one header. From what I've seen, we could have had the same type of player for less than half the money we paid for him with Serie A experience." Then there's been a bit of a back and forth about this, but David has chimed in saying it's still too early to judge Muriqi. He's still not fit. We're not crossing the ball into the box like last season with Lulic and Lazzari, and that's his big strength. What do you think? So where are you falling on this? Obviously one of those is extremely critical and one is extremely understanding. So where do you fall?
Well, there are a couple of considerations to make. First, let's not forget, he arrived, he had COVID-19, so he didn't start training. Then he had a little injury. So it's clear that physically he's not 100%. He's not ready. But we saw some skills that we were aware of him. He's a fighter. He's going to fight and he's going to help the team. And that's what happened against Torino. We also knew that he wasn't a top scorer, someone that scores 20 goals in a season. But the concerning part is, I'm pretty sure he didn't have a chance against Torino. He never shot on target. But the first goal came from an idea of Muriqi, so that's important. The other thing is, it doesn't look like the team is aware that Muriqi is playing. Again, yesterday, we saw a lot of assists outside the box, not going for Muriqi, but going, for example, to Correa or to Fares, etc. You have Muriqi for that. So you should aim for his head instead of, trying to go for Immobile, etc., etc. So that's one of the problems that Lazio have. I think players forget that we have finally a striker that is good with a header and should try to connect with him more. And obviously this doesn't help. But again, give him time, he needs at least one month to get used to Lazio and to get fit.
Yeah, for me, I think that this doesn't need to go further than one point, really, which is look at the guy that we're celebrating today, Felipe Caicedo. Caicedo had an absolute nightmare when he joined Lazio. By the end of the season, 2017-18, when he missed that chance against Crotone that could have got us Champions League football, the kind of abuse he was getting was really, to be honest, a bit disrespectful and not very fair. But he didn't play well for Lazio at all in that season, and it took a real turnaround in the second season to get people back on side, and now he's a fan favourite and he's doing things like this for us. players need time, and he's coming in from a completely different league. He's played in so far in Albanian and Turkish football. It's a completely different style he's going to be dealing with here. It's a big step up he'll be dealing with, and it's a new system for it to play with as well. And I think you can see that because, like you say, he's not an out-and-out goal scorer. He wants to link up with his teammates. And I think there is a genuine lack of understanding at the moment where he's kind of looking for them in areas where they're not, or he's not quite sure what movements to make. But we should point out he played a huge part in the first Lazio goal yesterday, which is a brilliant goal.
Yep.
Great, good run to get onto Milinkovic's pass, and then he picked out Patrick across the box. It was a good ball. It was one of those that, he doesn't get an assist for it, but he may as well have because he was as important to the move as anyone else was. So I think it's a bit unfair. I don't think he was bad enough yesterday to justify a lot of the abuse he's getting. And I know there's the price tag thing, but there's no need to apply pressure on a player for that because although it's a big price tag for Lazio, let's be honest, 20 million nowadays isn't actually that huge a price to be playing for a striker.
No, absolutely. And again, I mean, he needs time. And to be honest, I read some comments of people really unhappy about his performance. Again, I don't think he played that bad. For example, I thought Fares played worst. I didn't like Fares' performance yesterday. So, again, he needs time to adapt to Italian football, get back in shape. And, at the moment, we have plenty of option there, which is good compared to the past. I mean, do you remember when Immobile wasn't fit? We struggled to have two good strikers there. So this is another proof that Lazio has finally depth pretty much everywhere, I would say, Alistair. Because yes, it's true that we still have a couple of players out: Radu, Lulic, Escalante. Luis Alberto, we don't know why, and Lazzari. Last year, we would be really, really in trouble with all these players missing. This year, we are able to get 1 point in the Champions League, win against Torino. So you can see some positive sign there.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have Nani running around, for God's sake. Things have got better.
Definitely. And yesterday we had Moro out. He was cold, but he was near Iglitare watching the match. Last year we would have, let's not forget that Raul Moro came in against Juventus last year because we didn't have any option there. So I love Moro. I saw him playing against Fiorentina. Again, he was unbelievable. But I don't know. I prefer to have more experienced option there than the Raul Moro.
Yeah, good to see him flourishing in the Primavera, though, because that's the first step you want to see, isn't it? And he's still young, even for Primavera level. He's quite a young player, even at that level. Right, let's finish with turning our attention to the Zenit game on Wednesday night. We've had a couple of questions about this. Steven Scarpillo is wanting to know our starting 11. And we've also had a comment from Hungarian Laziali saying, do we think the Zenit double will be decisive for Lazio in the Champions League this season? You think so?
So the formation is quite easy. Parolo.
Akpa.
I mean, that's it, right? No, seriously. I don't know if Lazzari and Luis Alberto will be able to play. That's the biggest question mark. If they aren't, I think that the biggest change would be Ciro Immobile and Strakosha starting against Zenit, and a little bit of rotation there, maybe Akpa Pro as well. And definitely, if we win there, which is not easy, guys, it's not easy. Let's not forget, I don't know if people are aware, 30% of the fans will be there at the match in St. Petersburg. So it would be completely different from an empty stadium. Conditions are different. It's much colder there than in Rome. Obviously, it shouldn't be snowing still, but it will be cold. So winning in St. Petersburg, it would be a huge boost for the Champions League. I'm not saying it's done, but obviously, if you win even at home, then I think with 6 points, especially considering that Dortmund has to play against Bruges. So one of the two will lose point. But yes, I think this is a key. These two are the key match for Lazio Champions League future.
Yeah, I think they have to be when you consider that Zenit came into this as, the favourites to go through alongside Dortmund. They've got off to a bad start. So, because they've lost those opening 2 games at home to Bruges and away to Dortmund, it puts Lazio in a position where not only would a win, cement our place at the top of that group, but it would make that gap, almost insurmountable for Zenit. And I think Zenit are, for me, still the likelier between them and Bruges to kind of pick up more points in the second half of this group. So, with a 7-point gap before the return round of fixtures, that puts Lazio in a huge position, really. They've also, I saw that they won at the weekend. I don't really know enough about the Russian league to tell you if a 2-0 win away to Khimki is a good result or not. But before that, they'd lost 3 in a row. So they've not been in brilliant form. Again, I think it just hugely depends on what Lazio team we've got, because we'll have to do these UEFA rounds of testing again, which clearly are a bit more careful than the ones in Serie A, because the grey area seems to be bigger in terms of when players are allowed to travel or not. So we can't predict the starting lineup because we might just have 2 players available, Akpa and Parolo.
Yeah, and we have to be honest. I thought with a full squad against Club Brugge, Lazio would have won easily. We got a point with all those problems that we already talked. I got the impression with the starting 11, Lazio would have easily won that match. And so I believe at home in Rome against Club Brugge, Lazio can really get 3 points there. So I really think that, getting 6 points here, or maybe 4 still is good, I think would put Lazio in the second place. Still, I think Lazio have to fight for the first position, because obviously then you get a better team in the next round. But seeing the other teams, I think Borussia and Lazio are the best team of the tournament. Zenit is a little bit a disappointment because should be quite good. Instead, they're not.
It's hard to judge still, though. I think we talked a little bit about the Zenit Bruges game right back at the start of this, and it was one of those weird kind of matches where it was a bit chaotic, and there were late goals and so on. And then I guess losing 2-0 away to Dortmund is no disgrace for them, given the quality of Dortmund's team. So I still don't really know whether or not to use the Champions League results that they've had so far as a judgment on what kind of a team they're going to be, what kind of a threat they're going to be. Because we have to remember that no matter how confident we might be feeling, Zenit are a very experienced Champions League team. They're in it almost every year. Like you say, they've got fans, not only fans, but most of them are topless and very loud, from what I've seen before. So they do like to generate a good atmosphere, which is something obviously Lazio haven't had to deal with at all for a long time. In Artem Dzyuba, from what we've seen with him for Russia as well, he's an absolute bulldozer of a striker. So I would like to see personally Francesco Acerbi given the central position and told to mark Dzyuba, because I think Acerbi does really well in those kind of one-on-one man marking situations. Assuming Dzyuba's playing, that is. But I mean, I feel relatively confident.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're gonna see. The match is Wednesday. Alistair, I hope you're gonna be able to see it this time, not like last weekend. And guys, as we did last time for the Champions League, we're going to be live just after the finish of the match. So please join us on our YouTube channel, on Twitter. So please join us. And remember to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. And Alistair, we're going to talk next Wednesday then.
Yes, looking forward to it. Hopefully after another win.
Yeah, crossing fingers. Bye, Alistair.
Ciao.